covering sports for 30 years. It's one thing for an exhibition here, there, whatever, but you can't continue to be allowed to build a career without getting into the ring with fighters. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon.
But does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway.
Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK.
Stephen A. Smith has exploded over the announcement, blasting Jake Paul for what he calls a complete lack of respect for the sport of boxing. According to Smith, Jake has never treated boxing with the seriousness and discipline it requires. Instead, he claims Paul has built his entire career on exhibition-style matchups, handpicking opponents who were either retired, out of shape, or long past their prime. Smith says this pattern insults the legacy of boxing and that pairing Jake Paul with a proven heavyweight like Anthony Joshua is yet another sign of how badly the sport is being exploited for entertainment rather than true competition.
He can't continue to get away with stepping into the ring against strikers for the UFC, basketball players, unknown boxers.
Simon Jordan isn't holding back. He says the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul matchup exposes everything that's going wrong in modern boxing. According to Jordan, business has officially overtaken the integrity of the sport. Promoters and fighters are now prioritizing publicity, hype, and giant paydays instead of real competition. Jordan warns that when boxing becomes a spectacle rather than a contest of skill, the sport's decades-old respect begins to crumble. And this fight, he argues, is the clearest example yet. It's financially massive, but dangerously misleading, especially for young fighters and future fans who might start believing that fame matters more than earning your place in the ring. He goes even further, saying that using a world-class athlete like Anthony Joshua to elevate someone who hasn't been tested at the elite level cheapens the entire sport. In Jordan's view, turning a championship-caliber boxer into a marketing tool rather than a competitor doesn't just harm Joshua, it discredits everyone who dedicated their life to climbing the ranks the right way.
But this, to me, is everything that's wrong with boxing. It's a money play, nothing more. I don't begrudge Anthony Joshua getting 50 million quid for an easy night's work. That's fantastic returns. Most people would take it. From the boxing world, Jake Paul is now a professional fighter. Whether we categorise him as a YouTuber or not, he's licensed to fight, which means that the governing body should be suggesting that this is not a fight that possibly they should be looking to sanction.
Yeah.
But they will, because the sanctioning fees will be enormous. Anthony Joshua will not lose his legacy like some people are suggesting, because no one will remember it in 2 or 3 years' time. If he embarrasses himself in there, they'll remember it. But if he goes in and knocks him out in 30 seconds flat, or turns it into a little bit more of a sort of Jake LaMotta Raging Bull holding him up for a few rounds and then knocking him out, then people will forgive it. He'll get a big bag of money, which most people in the world would take, and move on. And then we'll see if he fights anybody meaningful in the year. I mean, it is like sport has become. And what I got my head around on Saturday night was the entertainment value of Conor Benn and Chris Eubank. The fighting of itself, I could be all pious about it, but the entertainment industry is so prevalent in sport now. This is entertainment. This is going to have hundreds of millions of people watching it.
Of course.
And Anthony Joshua gets paid, and Jake Paul hopefully gets flattened.
Simon, I know the money's there, but does ultimately boxing get damaged?
Well, I think so. Well, I think boxing damages itself left, right, and centre. But I think the reputability and the credibility of some of these boxing sanctioning bodies is poor anyway. But I think it does get damaged.
Even if it's an exhibition fight, which it might well be.
Well, then what's the jeopardy in that? If it's an exhibition fight, which it shouldn't be, if it's a proper fight, then Jake Paul is going to get demolished.
Johnny Nelson has stepped into the conversation, and he's calling the matchup flat out crazy and dangerously real. Nelson insists this isn't just another crossover novelty fight. This is a legitimate contest with enormous stakes and serious physical consequence. He gives Jake Paul credit for his courage, but also questions whether bravery has crossed into recklessness by taking on a proven, battle-tested heavyweight champion. Nelson says the shock factor isn't the hype, it's the reality. This is not an exhibition. There are no safety nets. One mistake against a puncher like Anthony Joshua can end a career or worse. His reaction reflects the exact tension gripping the boxing world right now. Excitement, curiosity, and genuine fear. Nelson goes on to analyze Jake Paul as a competitor. Yes, he's shown discipline, skill, and confidence in previous fights, but those opponents were nowhere near the level of Anthony Joshua. To Nelson, Jake's willingness to step into this kind of danger is both admirable and alarming. It's the bravest move of Paul's career and potentially the most dangerous decision he has ever made.
Because of Anthony Joshua's desire to be in the history books, to be a 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. To me, it shows me his desire. Pick up 50 million along the way. Nobody can knock him for this. This is now business. This is business. For Jake Paul, absolutely crazy. Jake Paul is a domestic level professional fighter here in the UK. Would he win a British title? No, I don't think so. So now they're putting this domestic level fighter in with a former heavyweight 2-time champion of the world. The weight is 245. So I think last time Anthony Joshua weighed around that was when he fought Usyk. That means he's got to be fight fit on point, because his last fight was 18 stone. I think it was 254 against Danny Dubois. So now he's basically saying you've got to get yourself in position, get yourself fit, and get yourself ready for fight. It's not heavyweights. This is a fight. It's not a push and a pull. You know, so as long as it's not a push and a pull, and don't put me down and don't touch me in the build up to this fight. You remember when McGregor and Mayweather, they had this little side deal, don't touch me in the build up to this. If this is a real, legitimate fight, Jake Paul is absolutely crazy. If not crazy, he's super brave. And it'll be interesting to see.
Well, what do you think? Yeah, because you said that before when we spoke about it being a proper fight or not. And Eddie Hearn and Paul's promoter, Nikisa Bidarian, have both said in the last couple of days, it will be a proper fight. And now you've heard the details, 8 rounds, 3 minutes around, 10-ounce gloves. Do you believe it when they say that it's going to be a proper fight?
I do believe it because AJ's involved, and I think AJ'd struggle to he's going to take enough flack over this, but again, it's money talk. So I think AJ will struggle because it's an Owen situation. If he goes in there, Jake Paul lasts the distance. What does he tell you about AJ? Apart from he's just earned an extra 15 million quid. If he goes there and struggles with Jake Paul, then what to say about AJ? Your heydays are well and truly over. If he goes in there and knocks him out, then I'll say that's to be expected. So the glory, there's probably not much glory in it, apart from the haters of Jake Paul to say, "Oh, I've got rid of this kid." I think he's very brave of Jake Paul. So now the problem child has got to believe this fight's actually happening. So now
Tony Jeffries brings a more level-headed perspective to the debate, reminding everyone that in boxing, absolutely anything can happen. He emphasizes that preparation, strategy, and mental toughness can sometimes bridge even the widest gaps in skill and experience. Jeffries notes that Jake Paul is younger and may have the edge in stamina, endurance, and recovery, key factors in a long, high-pressure fight. However, he's honest. Jake Paul is not on Anthony Joshua's technical level, at least not yet. But Jeffries refuses to dismiss him. He acknowledges Jake's rapid improvement and his serious commitment to training, saying Paul has worked incredibly hard to elevate his game against tougher opponents. According to Jeffries, the gap between Paul and Joshua isn't as massive as many critics believe. With the right game plan and laser-focused discipline, surprises are always possible. Boxing has a way of defying expectations, and that unpredictability is what makes a matchup like this so fascinating.
Prime. Where Anthony Joshua, on the other hand, is, well, I'm not going to say he's coming into his prime because he had some great wins earlier on in his career before he lost to Usyk twice. And by the way, when he did lose to Usyk, the last one was a split decision. It was a pretty close fight. So now this fight is matched, and I just want to look at the tail of the tape. Now, looking at the age difference, we've got 28 years old compared to 36 years old. So I guess the advantage there goes a little bit towards Jake Paul. 28-year-old is better than a 36-year-old. But that being said, we've got talking about experience and everything else. What comes with being 36 years old at Anthony Joshua's level. And then, like I mentioned, the heavyweights kind of seem to prime a little bit older. They'll come down to the height and the weight. This is the big one. 6'1" versus 6'6". 200 pound versus 252 pound. We got a 252 pounder in Anthony Joshua. The reach advantage is a lot, which we would expect. Amateur fights, we can see that Jake's only had one, where each is at 43, but 43 of them are included at the highest level, Olympic level. And yes, He won the Olympic bloody gold medal, if I don't need to remind you. Then the pro record, Jake Paul has had 13 fights, lost 1. AJ has had 28 fights and he's lost 4 with 25 KOs. And the one person that Jake Paul lost to was Tommy Fury. Now, can we compare Tommy Fury with Anthony Joshua? Not at all. It's like night and day. So now I'm going to talk about the rules of this fight and I'll give you my prediction, which is going to shock a lot of people after this. So, what are the rules? The bout will take place at a heavyweight, obviously. It's going to be 8 3-minute rounds. You might think, well, that's better for Jake Paul.
Chael Sonnen has weighed in, and he's making one thing very clear. Jake Paul's critics are finally going to find out who he really is inside the ring. Sonnen says this matchup with a true, elite professional will expose everything. Either Jake Paul's success has been inflated by hand-picked opponents, or he genuinely belongs in high-level, competitive boxing. According to Sonnen, this fight is a reality check for everyone, fans, pundits, and the sport itself. It will finally answer the question that has been hanging over Jake Paul's entire career. Is he a real fighter, or just a marketing product? Sonnen goes even deeper, calling this fight a defining moment for public perception of boxing. Facing a world-class heavyweight puts Paul under a level of scrutiny he has never experienced before. Not from casual viewers, but from hardened analysts, former champions, and lifelong students of sport. This time, there will be no excuses. Sonnen argues that this scrutiny is actually good for boxing. It forces standards. It demands proof instead of hype. And it ensures that claims of being a professional are earned in the ring, not manufactured through marketing. Whatever happens, Sonnen believes this fight will reshape how crossover boxing is viewed, and Jake Paul will either silence the critics once and for all, or prove them right.
Courage that it takes for Jake Paul to do this, as well as for Joshua. You know, this isn't Joshua's first time doing a spoof fight. He fought Francis. That was a spoof fight. Francis had never won boxing before, but we understood he has fought before. It was one of those things where when you got through it, like coming into the front side, I'm sure Anthony Joshua trained plenty hard for it. But coming out the back, he probably realized I didn't need to train for that at all. That was fun. That was a good time. I got to hear him call my names. I got to go out there. I got to be light on my feet. I got to lay on these combinations and then cut an interview and pump my hands over my shoulders like I accomplished something. What dreams are made of. And so Joshua did one of those fights. It was with Francis, and this is a completely different kind of that type of fight, but it's still that fight nonetheless. Jake Paul has abilities to win this fight. A lot of them involve moral victories. A lot of them involve getting out of the first round. And a lot of them would involve getting out of the first 2 rounds and haven't been knocked down yet. Want to be getting out of the 3rd round, you've only been on the canvas once, and you got up to your feet, you shook it off, and you're ready to keep going. Like, these things are all victories, but the fight that it's going to happen, I think it's a big deal for Jake Paul. I think it's a big deal for everybody involved. I think it's a big deal that Francis looks at that fight and realizes, oh, these things make sense. These things that make dollars, they make sense. That's his business. This was his opportunity that he missed out on. And now Joshua's going to have a lot of fun. And overall, I see the fight being one-sided. And people keep saying, well, slow down, wait till you hear what all of the rules under exhibition clause mean. As long as they're throwing punches at one another.
Dan Rafael approaches the matchup from a technical standpoint, pointing first to the obvious. Jake Paul has improved. Since the Tommy Fury fight, Rafael says Paul has shown clear growth in technique, stamina, and tactical decision-making. He's smarter, more disciplined, and more polished than the version fans saw a year ago. But Rafael immediately draws a line. Improvement doesn't erase reality. Jake Paul is still far below the elite standard of Anthony Joshua. The gap between a rising professional and a seasoned world heavyweight champion is massive, and fans need to keep their expectations in check. Rafael believes this fight will be revealing. It will expose Paul's strengths, yes, but also the cracks in his game. Sparring and training cannot replicate the experience of standing across from a high-caliber heavyweight with knockout power, timing, and ring IQ sharpened through years at the top of the sport. He reminds audiences that boxing isn't just about muscle and athletic talent. It's about split-second decisions, mental resilience under pressure, and adapting mid-fight when a game plan starts to crumble. These are qualities Anthony Joshua has mastered, and ones Jake Paul is still learning.
Had in his most recent 2 fights, those are so-called real fighters, but not for a long, long time. Chavez is a decade or so past when he was best, and Tyson had been retired 19 years and hadn't been, even when he was still an active fighter, hadn't been at his best over the last decade of his career. So they were guys with big names, but not threats. And the other fighters that he's faced have been a collection of either non-combat athletes, MMA fighters who've decided to come into boxing or had very limited experience in boxing. And then, a couple of guys in boxing that didn't have a lot of experience who were boxers, but had been off, for a long time. A couple of guys you never heard of before he fought those guys, and those guys you'll never hear of again. Of course, the fight against Tommy Fury, which I know he lost, but it was like a split decision, as my recollection says, and it was awfully close. And for my perspective is, whatever you think about it, Jake Paul certainly has gotten better since he fought Tommy Fury. He's certainly gotten better over the last number of fights. Now, is he at an elite, world-class level? Probably not yet. He may never get to that level, but so you got to give him props. He's taken on a guy that I spend part of my morning talking to different boxing matchmakers, people I've known for decades in this business, who have vast experience of building fighters and moving fighters and developing them, and they know a lot better than you or me what they're looking at. And to a person, they were like, they don't understand why Jake took this fight, because they think it's, one person used the word of decapitation. So he's going to be a monstrous underdog against a massive puncher. But they're all getting paid.
Carl Froch has weighed in, and he's not sugarcoating the magnitude of this fight. According to Froch, the stakes are enormous for both men, but for very different reasons. Anthony Joshua is at a stage in his career where every move is scrutinized, and one misstep could trigger waves of criticism about his legacy, focus, and consistency. And on the other side is Jake Paul, whose entire rise depends on proving he can stand toe-to-toe with legitimate professionals. Froch says this matchup is more than entertainment. It's a crossroads. For Joshua, it's a test of stability. For Paul, it's a chance to finally validate his place in real boxing. Froch frames the fight as a high-risk, high-reward moment for both competitors. If Joshua dominates, he reinforces his legacy as a true heavyweight force. If Paul survives, or somehow shocks the world, his credibility skyrockets overnight. But failure for either man carries consequences. Joshua risks damaging his reputation, while Paul risks exposing the limits of his ambition. In Froch's view, this isn't just a fight for money or headlines. It's a battle for respect, legitimacy, and career direction. A moment that could reshape how the boxing world views both athletes.
Fake Paul is not a step in the direction of becoming world champion again. There's many people who could box. He's not going to make that kind of money. So let's just be honest with anybody else. So let's just be straight up honest about it. He's doing it all for the money. It's all about the money. I did say a year ago when he got splattered by Daniel Dubois that he's finished in boxing, he needs to retire. That's just my opinion, that's just my truth. I think he's done in heavyweight boxing at an elite competitive level. So that makes sense. I've been vindicated. He's now fighting Fake Paul in what will be a massive mismatch. If this is correct, and it's 10-ounce gloves in the professional boxing rules, 8 3-minute rounds. It's not going to go 2 rounds, is it? It shouldn't though. It shouldn't last a round. But we're going to have to wait and see, aren't we? It's hard to get your head around. It's hard to know what to say about this. AJ's obviously excited about it, about making some serious bunts. And Jake Paul's telling us that he's going to shut all the haters up by jumping in there with AJ. So what is actually going off? We're not going to know, are we, until the fight actually, until the first bell goes. We're not going to know what's actually behind all this. And we can't start throwing accusations of any sort of skullduggery going off, because we've got to take it at face value. It's not an exhibition, so nothing's pre-scripted. This is a professional boxing match that you can make bets on. So it's got to be a real fight. And if AJ goes in there with them little 10-ounce gloves on and throws the Ngannou 1-2 down the middle, I'm talking about the one that rendered Ngannou unconscious and almost snapped his leg. And Ngannou's a decent fighter in the cage. You know, he's a good MMA fighter, and you saw him. He took Tyson Fury. What did it take him? 8, 9? Was it 10 rounds? Can't remember how long it was, but he took him the distance and lost a close decision. So he's quite capable. But AJ's a big punching heavyweight, and fake.
Ariel Helwani offers a different take, arguing that fears about Anthony Joshua's legacy being damaged are overblown. According to Helwani, taking a fight of this magnitude is a calculated professional decision, part of managing a career in modern boxing, and doesn't inherently reflect poorly on Joshua. Helwani stresses that paydays, exposure, and visibility are legitimate components of a boxer's career. High-profile bouts against popular or unconventional opponents are standard in today's sport, representing the intersection of business and competition rather than undermining credibility. In his view, Joshua's choice to face Jake Paul shows adaptability and professional judgment. Helwani emphasizes that facing a widely publicized opponent allows Joshua to showcase his skill to a broader audience while maximizing career opportunities. The key, he argues, isn't who the opponent is, it's how Joshua executes in the ring. With the right preparation and approach, Helwani believes this fight can serve both sporting and commercial interests, adding value to Joshua's career rather than threatening it.
On him, I do think that is how that would ultimately go, though.
What's your level of interest, Mr. Connor Burks? What do you think about this? How do you think people will receive this?
Mr. Connor Burks, yeah, I am very interested in it. I'm already seeing the tweets and Instagram posts online that people definitely want to see this fight happen if Jake Paul is going to fight anyone. I can't imagine a fight that would garner more interest. It's a legitimate boxer in Anthony Joshua who has massive wins on his resume. He's much bigger than Jake Paul. He is a global superstar, and also he's going to be a massive favorite in it. To me, it just makes sense from a standpoint of if you're Jake Paul and you somehow pull this off and you beat Anthony Joshua, you silence all the doubters out there. You beat a guy in Anthony Joshua that you're not supposed to beat. And then if you're someone that doesn't like Jake Paul, you want to tune in to see him get knocked out, you put it on Netflix. To me, it makes a ton of sense from a visibility standpoint, from getting the most eyes on it. Obviously, you're never going to top the Tyson thing just because of who Mike Tyson is, but right now, especially on short notice.
That's it for today's breakdown. What do you think? Can Jake Paul hang with Anthony Joshua, or is this a mismatch waiting to happen? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to stay tuned for all the latest updates. Until next time,